Jonathan Wills, Councillor from the Shetland Islands. Here we are today on the last day of the CPMR General Assembly. What particular issues have caught your attention over the past few days?
Well, everybody's talking about Brexit, and I suppose all I can say is I'm sorry, because I didn't vote for this nonsense. Shetland's in Scotland, we voted to stay in Europe.
Of course.
Even with the fisheries policy, there's been a lot of criticism of the fisheries policy in Scottish ports and in the Shetland Islands. But on balance, people in Scotland felt it was best to stay in. The effect of Brexit on fisheries is very interesting because it will mean that fish exports from Britain to Europe will have an 11% tariff against them. That's for fresh fish, and for processed I believe it would be 18%. So we're cutting ourselves off from a very important market, and some of the fishermen think they're going to get unrestricted access to all the fish. Well, they're not, because of course some of the British quota has been sold already to financial interests elsewhere in Europe, and I don't think you can stop them fishing. So we're going to have to continue to deal with Europe, whether we're in it or not, to regulate the fisheries in a sustainable and manageable way.
And do you feel that's going to be possible? Do you feel that they will arrive at doing that?
I think it's almost impossible. I think we're sailing off the edge of a cliff. I think this is an utter catastrophe. Almost every industry you look at, it just gets worse and worse the harder you look at it. I hope that parliamentary democracy will be restored. We are governed by people who we elect to take decisions. That's our MPs. We are not governed by continual plebiscites. And what this is doing is leading to what I can only describe as a dictatorship of populism.
There seems to be some good news emerging potentially with the High Court ruling, given that it now means that Parliament must accede to sign off to begin Article 50. What chance do you think they have?
I think the chances are poor, but the most interesting part of the ruling, which I have read in its entirety, is that it says once you press the button under Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty to leave, it's irrevocable. It can't be stopped. You'll either leave in 2 years' time without a deal, out into the wilderness, or you'll leave with some sort of deal. Now, obviously, Parliament cannot decide in advance what that deal will be because they've got to go and talk about it to the European Union, and they can't do that till they press the 50 button. So the government will come back to Parliament and say, well, we've got a choice here. We can either go out into the wilderness with no deal at all, or we can have this really not very good deal that we've managed to get. And I don't think they're going to get that deal. And I think it's a catch-22, and I think there's going to be a revolt about it. Certainly, if they try to take Scotland out of Europe without our consent, I don't think that's going to work. I think there'll be trouble. I don't mean violence, because we don't do that, but I do mean the possibility of the Scottish Government taking unilateral action with popular support. And we already have in Westminster 56 of the 59 Scottish members of Parliament are SNP. Well, that normally would entitle you to UDI. In the Scottish Parliament with proportional representation, even there the Scottish Government has a minority of one, but the other party that supports them, the Greens, who also support independence, give them a majority of 1 or 2. So I think we live in very interesting times, and like the old Chinese proverb, I wish we didn't live in interesting times.
And the other chance, of course, is, well, the other possibility, of course, is that Scotland may indeed vote to leave the UK anyway. What do you think are the chances of that?
I thought the chances of Scotland leaving the UK were slim, and it would have taken about 10 years of patient negotiation. This has changed everything. People voted in 2014 to stay in the UK because they were told that this would mean staying in the European Union. That is now not the case, so this is a material change of circumstances. I think Nicola Sturgeon is an extremely cautious and clever lawyer, and she's not going to do anything rash. But it looks to me as though she's being pushed into having a leaving referendum by the British government. It's incredible. I never thought I'd see it. And the Labour Party is not going to save us from Brexit. They've obviously decided to accept the result of this opinion poll, this marginal result. Personally, I think if you leave something like the European Union, you should have a 60% majority, or certainly 40% of the registered electors.